Welcome to Origin to Ambition, the show where we explore the small business entrepreneur's journey in business. I'm your host, Sean Dunne. Let's get into it.
What pushed you? Like you said, there was probably something there that you were going to be self-employed, but what was the pivotal sort of moment, if you can nail it down, that you were like, right, time to do this?
Yes. So I obviously had recognized when I was cold calling for the boss, who was running the marketing company, her clients would consistently come in saying, I need an Ash, I want a cold caller in my business. So My mind was already ticking away a little bit thinking, yeah, I could do this for myself. And so 2011 was when I decided to jump in the deep end. It actually was, because unfortunately the marketing firm I was working for did go under. And so, it was kind of a sink or swim moment. But I have to tell listeners, if it's anything to take away, because often people say to me, how did you make your business successful? Like, how did you do this? And I always think back and think, I didn't have a plan B. So for those that are listening that might be thinking, yeah, I want to do my own business, or run my own business, I'm such a big believer in, again, jumping off that cliff and building the aeroplane on the way down, as they say a lot of entrepreneurs do. So I was, I think I had like $500 in my bank account, nothing else to show for. I remember I developed this really crappy website. It was not much to show, but I thought I need that credibility, right? Put that up there. And then I really just used my own skill set, which was picking up the phone and calling companies saying, this is what I'm passionate about. I'd love to help you grow your business. And quite quickly, we grew. So I remember I had about 4 clients on my books that I was doing a lot of work for before I started to think, I could probably use some help. And that's when I started to, look at getting a team, look at building a team around me, which was, the next part of the journey.
Well, what I love is you proved your own service by doing it.
That's right. Well, the proof's in the pudding, right? And
words out of my mouth. Yep, exactly. Yeah.
It's such a big topic, Sean, especially for someone like myself, because, again, we're kind of going off on tangents, but it's all relevant that as part of my business journey, my passion will never stop for actually getting in the trenches and doing the calls. That's who I am. I love doing cold calling. And over the years, I've trained a lot of individuals and organizations in how to effectively prospect or cold call. And I think that's the real differentiator. And I guess it's a takeaway for people listening who might be thinking of hiring someone or using a sales trainer, let's say, is that, they've got to practice what they preach. And I'm really proud that I can say, well, I generated appointments last week using these methods. So if you want to learn how to do it, I've been there, done that. So I think it's very powerful.
You said about tangents before, and I'm shocking at going off on tangents, but I'm fascinated because on when I have these discussions with entrepreneurs, a lot comes out around the mindset of being an entrepreneur. And a number of people I've also spoken with on here have come from sporting backgrounds, and there's quite a crossover between high-level sport. Doesn't mean you have to have represented Australia or gone to a world championship or something, but there's a very strong crossover or correlation, I find, in the mindset of those people. And I'm fascinated because I don't want to keep being repetitive, but with cold calling and the fact that you still love to do it, what is there an element of almost like testing yourself or almost running a mini competition against yourself, because you're doing something a lot of people don't like to do? And do you almost like pick up the phone and think like, can I rack up a win here? Is that sort of the mindset?
You've hit the nail on the head. And funnily enough, Sean, over the many years I've been doing this, I don't think someone's been able to describe it in such a good way. Like that's definitely how I would describe I go into each session. And I also love that you brought up mindset, because whenever I work with people, as I said, I train, individuals and organizations. That is like topic number one for me, is if you can't master your sales mindset, you will never create the results that you want to achieve. And to give people insight, and it's also playing into the whole, do you kind of set a target for yourself? Do you,
Yes.
is it like a game? I always write down on a piece of paper. So say I'm calling for a client and I want to generate 5 appointments, let's say. I will write on the piece of paper as if I've already achieved it. So I generated 5 appointments for XYZ client, and then I write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down the page. And it's almost like my brain starts to filter for the results it already has, if that makes sense. So I'm very in future tense here.
Sean Dunne here, and thank you for watching this episode of Origin to Ambition, the Entrepreneur's Journey. I'm a financial advisor who specialises in working with small business entrepreneurs and high-income earning executives. We analyse cash flow, build assets, and protect those assets to help our clients do what they want, when they want, with the people that they want to do it with. So if that's of interest to you, head over to our website and book an initial discovery call, and I'd look forward to speaking with you.
So what about early on in the business, the challenges? Because I think people, listening always learn from the challenges that other people have been through. So what stood out to you? What stands out to you in hindsight, like the early days of starting the business?
Definitely. Look, there's so many things. Oh my gosh, where do I start? I would say, and I always try to think, what are people going to take away from this? What's some like great advice I can give? And one of the ones that stands out for me is I am very right brain. So I'm very creative. Again, I love what I do. I love sales. I love people. I am not a numbers gal, right?
Yeah.
So if you give me spreadsheets and numbers and all of that, there's nothing worse. Like I'm just like, no. But my husband, and I'm very grateful for the fact that we are like yin and yang, right? So he is the left brain, he's an engineer, could have been an accountant, like he's just that way inclined.
Yeah.
And a year into running the Promo Donna, I thought we were flying. I was like, we are so profitable, like, all of this. But he said to me, I think we should do an audit on your business. And I went, why would we do that?
Yeah, we're flying. Why worry about it?
I could think of nothing worse, right? And he said, no, we're going to sit down and we're going to look at all your numbers. We're talking what you're charging people, what you're like paying someone, because I had a staff member at the time. What's your marketing costing you? What should you be charging for yourself? All those things. And it was such an uncomfortable process for me, but the most powerful, I think, that's ever happened in my business. Because what came out of it after, again, a year or so of being in business was it did show we were profitable, but nowhere near what I thought we were.
Yes.
So it was a real rude awakening, but it also gave me the opportunity to look at, okay, well, what should I charge my clients? What is my time worth? What should, all those key numbers. So, a really great learning for anyone starting out or running their business. It goes with that saying, numbers don't lie, and you need to know your numbers to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. So would your advice, this is always a tricky one when you start out in business, because a lot of the time you don't have the money, to have a team around you. And when I talk about team, I talk about, and this came up, Paul Veldman organised this conference on the weekend. He was actually a previous guest on this podcast. So a little shout out to Paul. But he he was saying the same thing about making sure you get the right team around you in your business to the attendees. He said, I've got Sean as my financial advisor, but you've got to have a good lawyer or a good accountant as well. But the tricky part when you're starting out is you don't have the money for these things often. And it is a lot of sweat equity, going into the starting up of the business. So what's your advice around getting those advisors and building your team around?
It is a must. It definitely is a must, but you're spot on, Sean, that it is such a balancing act, I think, and that's where knowing your numbers is so powerful.
I think you'll agree with me on this one. It's about knowing the rules of the game. So sort of, if I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I have to understand and accept the rules of the game I'm playing.
Yes.
So for example, I think you just gave a brilliant example talking about those first 5 years, right?
Yeah.
I'm up in the morning, I'm networking, I'm working late at night on my laptop, I'm taking calls at all hours because I just have to get those sales, basically. They're the rules. They were the rules of the game that you chose to play. But
yes,
but if you accept them over time, you can mold the rules, if that makes sense, to work for you. But I think there's a danger in not understanding or trying to understand the rules of the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from, and I love that point you made about, but over time you can probably learn to mold them a little more to what you want. And I think about my own business journey. Before our podcast today, I was obviously having a little bit of a reflection on, the journey. And that is one thing that I'm really proud of now. I think you get to a certain point where you are a lot more in your power as to what you will accept and what you don't. This is kind of you probably know where I'm going with this, that back in the day when I was doing those breakfast events and the working late at night and taking all the calls, there are a lot of things that I wouldn't do now just because I've set that boundary of, well, no, even clients, like I'm very proud to say I'm probably in a position now where if someone's not a fit or I just don't really want to work with them, I will stand in my power and kind of go, well, I don't think we're a fit, I don't think it's going to work. And that's only something that I think you learn over time, because the Ash that started the Promo Donna would never have said no, it would have been, no, we'll make it work. It's all good. But there's something to be said for not only, following the rules of the game, but then learning over time, you can play your own game though, and you don't have to play someone else's.
That's a better way to put it. I'll change the game now. So to the game I'm playing.
That's right.
How did you find, when I started my business, I kind of had an idea of the clients I wanted to work with. And I would say over time, even early, I was probably not taking clients that, even though I needed the money, probably not taking clients that didn't fit, basically. Yeah. But that was almost more of a technical avatar, almost like, they're like this and they've got this and they've got this. Whereas I've found over the last, I would say, post-COVID, to be perfectly honest, I found through COVID, we probably slipped a little bit in terms of losing that criteria, for want of a better term. I'll say client avatar, right?
Yes.
We probably slipped a little bit because in an effort to try and help, as you know, people locked down and a bit desperate, and we're trying to help people. So you start taking people on board that probably I wouldn't have ordinarily. And so I think our standards slipped a little bit around that. And so over the last few years, I've become quite, I still have that avatar, but I've sort of added on top like attitude, like and I wouldn't have maybe done that previously. So I'm curious as to how long so I would say, actually we started in 2010, so similar time frame to you. So this is our 16th year, and
amazing.
I would say it's been the last 4 years, 5 years where I've sort of been like, you fit the technical avatar, but like you're not a nice person. So I don't really, I'm not sure we want to work with you, right? So, and having that power to say, well, you don't have to work with me and I don't have to work with you. So how long did it take you? I'm just curious, and I'm telling my story, not because it's about me, but I think there's a similarity here.
Oh, definitely. I think our stories are so similar that you took the words right out of my mouth. That's what I'm saying, because I think we were very similar. Like, we were very lucky that during COVID and the lockdowns, we were set up remotely.
Yeah.
And again, we had all these great opportunities because, you know, people needed to just call, you know, they needed to call to generate new business.
Yes.
And so, yeah, we were quite successful during that period. However, like you, I think I made a bit of leniency because I was like, I like to call it, you've got kind of your demographic of who you want to work with, but there's the psychographics of those clients that you kind of want to make sure you're also taking in and spot on. So I think I was a bit lenient during that time because I thought people are struggling. I want to help them out.
Yeah.
And then I would say over the last, I reckon it's probably the last like 2 to 3 years, I've really stood in my truth when it comes to who I work with, and a lot of that plays into attitude and what they're like. And I think you're probably similar, Sean. I don't know about you, but again, it's all learnt from past mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for those listening, I am such a big believer, as much as I am in goal setting and manifestation, in also listening to your gut on things.
And that's all for this episode of Origin to Ambition. Thanks for tuning in. To make sure you don't miss our next conversation, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen in. For more information, you can visit us at dominiumcapital.com.au, and we'll see you next time.